wonderful speaker coming up, and her name is Linda Baker. I've known Linda for many years. She used to come to a lot of our meetings. She travels and teaches in Japan and in California, and she lives right here in Seattle. And she's a very special woman that has many talents. She fostered a number of teenagers. Can you imagine fostering teenagers?
Sainthood.
And they're healthy, wonderful human beings thanks to Linda. So this is her calling. Linda began her career as a registered nurse, specializing in psychiatric nursing. She felt that to heal from emotional, mental issues, one had to go to the root of the problem. Amen. That means going back to the womb, guys. The hospital setting did not address that. And in 1984, Linda was introduced to alchemical hypnotherapy. And from that first 4-day workshop, she was hooked. Now, after 4 decades of seeing clients, writing books, and teaching, Linda has created transformative hypnotherapy to take what she has learned over the years to a whole new level. So I'm honored to introduce this wonderful woman, Linda Baker.
Thank you very much for an introduction. Okay, I'll see if I can live up to the introduction. I heard somebody say about taking teenagers that, oh, she's a saint. And I said, I'm not a saint, my husband's the saint. So anyway, as you heard, I was a psychiatric nurse, and then I got introduced to Alchemical Hypnotherapy in 1984, and it totally changed my life. And I would not be here, I would not be who I am. I'd probably weigh 300 pounds and be really depressed if I hadn't found Alchemical Hypnotherapy and been able to, do transformation on my own life. And that's why I love it so much. So, many years ago, I was seeing a client, a woman, and it changed from, because a lot of, when we talk about hypnotherapy, we talk about emotions and mind and all this, but it's really body stuff. And body stuff came up for her. And afterwards, I said, wow, this was like cellular house cleaning. And why does it always have to be about house cleaning? But we carry in our bodies from our childhood, the programming we've had from our parents, the things I always say, children sell their souls to their parents. Because when you're a little kid and you're treated badly, you can't say, that's not nice to treat people that way, and I don't believe you. No, what we do, and you can't get angry, or maybe in some families you can't even get sad and cry, because then you're blamed, you're shamed for those emotions, or, like, if you say, I'm bored, my mother used to say, I'll give you something, if you're bored, or you're crying, I'll give you something to cry about. And it's like, okay, so we learn to store those feelings in our body. And then we become totally unaware. And like we all know, that it's these traumas and these things that we carry that run our lives. We think we're running our lives, we're adults, but in 2 seconds you're 3 years old, and somebody looks at you the wrong way and you're 3 years old. So, anyway, our bodies, they store things even from past lives. I always say that I don't believe that past life therapy is worth doing unless at the end of you go to the place of death, that time of death, and as your soul, just before your soul leaves your body, what are your last thoughts? What are your last contracts, commitments that you make? I work with so many people teaching this work that really want to do healing work, but they never can quite do it. They study, but they're never ready to do it. They always have blocks. Something comes up. They can't really do it. Many times of past life, they were what? Burned as at a stake as a witch, or they were hung, and so their contract that they made when they were leaving their body was, I will never do this again. And yet their soul is calling them to do healing work, calling them to be on this path. But they get so far, and that contract comes up, and they're like, we're not doing that again. Remember what happened last time? So when we do past life work, going to the very end and seeing when the soul leaves the body, what is the contract that was made? What are the promises that were made? And so, I really resisted going to see the Titanic. I did not want to see that movie. But my whole family was going, and at the last moment I caved in and I went. And I'm glad I did, because for me the most powerful part of the movie was to see how everyone was dying. Because everyone was on the same ship, right? And they were all going. But some people were loving and holding their children or having that glass of wine, the old couple, and saying goodbye, the musicians playing, right? And other people, I need to get on the boat. I'm going to push by you. I'm going to, be saved. And I thought, how we go is really important. And that energy we carry in our bodies. So the energy in our bodies could be from trauma from this life, from past lives. It can also be from our ancestors, from our DNA, from the culture that we were born in. So many people from cultures, who are, Latinx or Asian or, any culture like that, carry thousands of years of beliefs that are passed on. So we never know, what are we carrying in our body? I think it's pretty amazing that, most of us will drive on the correct side of the road and stop at a red light, and although that's getting a little iffy now these days, and a lot of people going through red lights, but I think people carry so much stuff. So we carry things in the body. So when doing hypnotherapy, it's not just about the mind. And I use the higher self, or I say the work is very spiritual, but spiritual is not religious. It's, you can be pagan, it could be the trees, it could be nature, it could be your power animals, it could be your angels, your spirit guides. It doesn't matter. It's just acknowledging that there is a divine connection, something greater than our mind that lives up here, and to always ask for that guidance to come into the session. And when I teach, students, when I've been mentoring a group of people, I always say, remember, when you call yourself for that higher power, that your higher self, however you see that, when you ask that to come into the session of you and the client, you know that you will do the right thing for that client, that the right thing will come through you, and every decision you make during that session will be the right one, because it's not you consciously trying to figure it out, because that just clogs stuff up, so you can't allow the greater good to come through. So what I ask people to do is to just breathe down in their body, because the mind can play tricks on you. The mind carries a lot of programming. So the mind can tell you things. The mind can tell you oh yeah, you should do this. Or, people that come in and say, yes, well, my mother was an alcoholic and she beat me, but, I've forgiven her. I understood that she was, and you look at their body language, and, they clench their jaw, they get their fish tight, but they're like, yeah, I knew that she had a problem when she was growing up, and so I've forgiven her. When you look at the body, always watch the body of your client, because the body will tell the truth. The body holds the truth. You cannot lie. The body will not lie to you. But the mind can. The mind can play tricks. And I wasn't planning on telling you such a personal story, but it just seems right. I never know what I'm going to say, because things just come out. When I first did alchemy, back in 1984, it was just a 3-day weekend. And I never, I didn't know anything about hypnosis or anything. I thought, it's a little watch you take and somebody collects like a chicken and that's okay. So the teacher, I decided to have a private session with him. And I thought, I don't know what's going to happen. And so we went to my grandmother's house, and I loved my grandmother and I loved her house. And he was getting kind of bored, and he's like, okay, well, what happened here? It's nice you're having this great memory, but what happened? And I had a memory of being really small, maybe 18 months or something, and being at the top of the stairs in my grandmother's house. She had 2 stairways, a front stairway and a back stairway. It was the back stairway. And I remember growing up asking my parents, my grandmother, did I ever fall down those stairs when I was a kid? Because it was something about that stairway, but I didn't know what it was. And I also had this kind of a fear, not like a super fear, but a little fear of walking downstairs. Like I had to be really careful. There's something about going downstairs that I carried in my life. And when we did that session, my father was at the top of the stairway with me, and he had this old green coat that I remember he used to wear that I hadn't thought of for years. And he was putting his fingers in my vagina and messing around. And I did not want to believe that. I was like, no, because my father I thought was my best parent. And my mind was like, no, this is not true, I'm making this up, this is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. And then what my teacher was doing the session said, well, I wonder, if there might be a sensation in your body, like a tingling sensation, or just a sensation. And all around my vaginal area started to just go crazy, go nuts. And I thought, no, this is not true. And I can relax. I can just breathe and relax. And the more I breathed and relaxed, the more my thigh muscles and all just became so tight and so tense, and I couldn't stand it anymore. And I had to accept that, yeah, he did some really inappropriate things. And then I remembered that, yeah, growing up as a kid, he'd always say, oh, dads would never hurt you, dads. And I always thought, well, maybe that's what all parents say to their kids, I don't know. But then as I got older and looked at that, I thought, no, that's really interesting. He knew he did something wrong, and he would just kind of say that to me. And so that's when I started looking at the body doesn't lie. So when we go into the body, we take people into their body. And I always say, like during an induction, I'll say, somewhere, I use a stairway a lot because I put myself kind of in trance when I'm doing the session, so I like to do, and around step 4 or something, and I'll say, in every cell of your body, and open to memory and to knowing. And it's amazing how, just yesterday I had a session with somebody, and she's a professional hypnotherapist. She's done a lot of work and stuff and everything, and it was about abundance and not feeling like abundant, not feeling like, she makes money, she makes good money, but then she loses her. Where'd my money go? I don't have money. We're talking about that, how when you have an abundance set in your life, like I'm worthy of this much money, if you get more than that, you go back down. And then you start losing money, but you know you're worth that much, you'll make some and you'll go up. And you keep yourself kind of on that, your place of belief. And so I asked her, let your body show you where you're holding on to something, that has to do with this. And she went right down into her stomach. And then I always tell people, if they go down into the body, if you take someone into the body, take them down to the very core. Like, okay, she had pain in her stomach, there was something there. So let's go down to the very center of that feeling, down to that very, very center, the very core of that feeling. And then what or who is there? And the client will come up with something. There'll be something. They'll be there from a memory, or their father's there, or their, whatever's there. Something will be there. And it could be a symbol too. It could be just, well, there's this big black knot, there. That's right, there's a big black knot. And then you can go deeper into that knot. Go down to the very center, because if you keep just going into the center, just holding the energy, just going to the center, you'll find. And what she found was when she was in school, they were very poor. She was, her father was very much into lack. She said he controlled everything. We never had enough. And he also worked at the school where she was. He was a janitor. And there was a rich girl at the school. And somehow, I don't know if it was in a locker or what, she didn't say, but he stole some of this rich girl's clothes and brought them home for her to wear. And she wore these clothes to school, and the rich girl confronted her and, and told her that, you're not worth it. I know you're poor. These are mine. You don't deserve this and all this. And she took on all the guilt and all the shame and all the stuff about not being worth it. She never said the truth, and she lied because she never said the truth because she was protecting her father. So she really got all this stuff, and it was hidden down inside her stomach in the center. And that's only just one example, but I love using the body because no matter what style you use, whatever you do, just remember that if you can take people into the body, and very gently, it's very gentle, like just, going down in the body, and just when, if you work with people that have illnesses, it could be fibromyalgia, it could be cancer, it could be migraine headaches, it could be anything, just going into the body, and you can use, always go down, you might say, well, there's a pain, like you have a pain in your heart. A lot of people, the solar plexus, the heart, are really big places for people to hold energy. And to just gently have them go into the heart and see, what's there? What is that pain? And maybe even what color is that pain? It doesn't matter what color it is, whatever comes out, there's no right. Or maybe how big it is. And that gives you an idea, like if somebody says, oh, like there's this black in my heart and it's really big, that's a really big trauma. Or a collection. It can be just a collection of traumas. It doesn't even have to be one trauma, just a whole collection. And go into that. And then, after they find, and sometimes it's not even a memory. Sometimes just emotion will come out. And I say that to people. It's like your body. If you imagine your body is your temple of your spirit. And your body should only be filled with your energy. And that's all the energy that belongs in your body. I don't care, if you love somebody, if whatever, you can love them, you can care about them. But your energy, your God, source, soul's energy belongs in your body. No one else's. And so I'll have people, just say, and what color is your soul's energy? Whatever color that might be, whatever, because you need to use that at the very end, because once they remove this old energy, and I always say to people, it's nothing, it's not good or bad, it's not blaming anyone, it's not anything, it's just old, crappy energy that you've been storing in your body for all this time, and you can let it go. And sometimes it comes like with the person I worked with yesterday, like the specific memory that needs to be, but sometimes it's not a memory. Sometimes people will just start, and you can feel the energy just coming up, and they just need to cry it out or scream it or something. The energy is just coming. And that's a really important thing to know as well, that, for our hearts to be really open and loving, our throat chakra needs to be open. And you maybe have worked with clients that, you want them to feel, but they're in their head so much. They're just really in their head. And why are people in their head and they're not in their feelings? It's because they're afraid to feel. Because if they start feeling, it's all going to come out. And a lot of us have been taught, what? Stop. Close it down. Close it down. We've been taught so much. And the heart can't be really open until the throat's open, because the throat is like the pathway between the mind and the heart. And if you aren't willing to set your boundaries, to speak your truth, to voice who you are, your authenticity, then how can your heart really be open? Your heart's kind of scared, like, no, I'm not going to be really vulnerable, I'm not going to, because you're not going to protect me. So that's a really important part of the body, to help people to open their throats. And, and I always say, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter how you express it, what you say, whatever comes out, it's only old energy. Sometimes I'll say, it's like having a garbage can. You have a garbage can, you have an old fish on the bottom, and the fish is rotting on the bottom of the garbage can, and you want to put, you don't want your garbage can to stink, so you might spray perfume on it or put a new bag on it, but until you get down and take the fish out, you're always going to have that problem. And that's what I say, it's just old energy, that's all it is. And once you go down there and let it out, when you let it out, then it's like your soul is waiting to come in. That energy, your soul's energy, whatever color you might see, people often see, it's a blue energy, a white energy, a golden energy, it doesn't matter. Bringing your true soul's energy in. And people will often just feel that lightness. They feel like, wow, they've called their soul back. And I get an image like, your soul is hanging out here, but if your body's filled with all the old programming and all the old stuff that you bought and all the old, things that you've been holding on to, it's like your true energy can't live in your body. So it's clearing out all that stuff so your energy can come and live in your body. And you might notice in yourself, you know, if you're, I know like Jack talked about this and other people have talked about it, that how we're not living in the moment. And if you notice, like, you know, somebody looks at you meanly, or, you know, you hear some words that somebody says, just notice where you might feel that in your body. Because wherever you feel that in your body is a good chance that that's where you're holding energy that is connected to something from the past, whether it's past lives or connected to your family, connected to your culture, connected to wherever it's connected to, but you're holding something there, and that's something you can clean out. And just think of it that way. Just think of it as old energy. It's meaningless. It's nothing. It's just old energy. I don't know how long I've been talking or whatever, but what do I have to talk?
Yeah, 1 minute.
1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay, well in 1 minute, does anyone have a question? Does this make sense to anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.